This time of year, of course, is intended to bring all of us joy. We certainly hope so, but so many people here in our viewing area and across the country can have a difficult time this season of the year, and especially if you are someone who struggles with PTSD. And whether it's you yourself or someone who loves you very much, finding the way to healing can sometimes be a journey for everyone. So we're very pleased this morning to have Dr. Cara Barker on the show. She has just finished writing her third book that is called Nightlight: Soul Calling, Body Listening, Heart Speaking. So nice to see you this morning.
Oh, it's wonderful. It's really my pleasure.
I know that we cannot possibly delve into a topic as complex as post-traumatic stress disorder and how it kind of roots in and how you finally get to healing in one conversation, but we're going to give it a whirl. And I want to start by letting people know that your book is available on Amazon. So as we're talking, they can be Googling it to learn more. But you say that really you've broken this book into 4 distinct parts. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
The first one is the trauma.
The first part is trauma, grief, and loss. But all of the conflicts that I talk about, the 4 major conflicts that people come to work on, all of them have trauma in them. So maybe a place to start is what it is, what trauma is. And I focus on post-traumatic growth, which is a strange thing to say, I know, to most people, but allow me. Have you ever been in a forest and it's just filled with greenery from the trees, evergreen, deciduous, all that, and then you go back after a fire, and after a fire you look at these burnt logs and there are little sprouts of new green coming up. And that's why, nature really explains everything to us if we're willing to look at it that way. So those new green sprouts are what happens with us if we're willing to work it when we go through trauma. Everything can have new life in it, new seeds of growth in it.
So would that mean then that if you are a person who's gone through trauma, and of course you could go to that forest and you could see the trees that are no longer, or you can focus on the new growth. It's how to learn to focus on the new growth that begins the healing?
Yeah, I think so. If we're willing to trust that we're all part of nature. And I really didn't, to tell you the truth, I didn't really get that it was a seedbed for new life, new growth, until after my son was killed almost 32 years ago. And, first in trauma, what you see is devastation. And it doesn't matter if the devastation is in grief or it's in, I don't know what the next step is that I should take at work, in my marriage, yada, yada. Or I realize I don't even know my own voice. I've learned all the scripts, but is that really me? And the last one, of course, is love.
So
when
people read your book, do you think it is also, I'm a big rereader, I like to reread. So if you were somebody who had a trauma 30 years ago, and you get the book and you read it, and maybe 3 years later you pick the book up and you read it again, might you absorb something different each time?
Well, go by readers. Readers have told me that one woman I don't know said she's already reread it 3 times.
Really?
And I've had people say, I'm rereading it with note cards, actually the old-fashioned 3x5 note cards to underline major points. So apparently it is. Mm-hmm. Apparently it is.
You were telling me, I know you're talking to me out in Seattle, so you've not had your morning cup of coffee yet, as we talked this morning. But you, it seems like it's something that you can read in private, on your own, but also something, if it has been a family loss, for example, that everybody could share, and almost like a book club, if you will, kind of come back and say, what did you take from this chapter?
Well, yes, and on different chapters, I ask questions that people could use as springboards. And actually, my second book, World Weary Woman, or Wound and Transformation, I've had book clubs that spontaneously emerged where they talked about that book. So, people feel so disconnected and they want to connect. And that goes back to, I think, what we need to look at, what really is a wound. A wound is, if you imagine you've been burned badly on your shoulder, on your face, and you were to touch that, it would hurt like heck, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to, and I remember this when I was in the burn unit in nursing. The worst thing to do is debriding, where you have to remove the most recent layer of skin so that there's enough oxygen for the cells. So it hurts. It hurts. But what causes wounds? It's a conflict between being authentic and attachment, or you could say bonding or connectivity. So those two forces are always in us as human nature. And that's hard. It creates a lot of tension. And especially now, if we're talking about loss as a bad diagnosis or literally losing a person that you love, there's an empty chair at the table, the holiday table.
I know that
And
I'm going to have to wrap it up, and I know that there are a lot of people watching who this might be a kind of unusual conversation. There are also plenty of people watching who are on the edge of their seats saying, this sounds like me, this is exactly what I'm needing to hear. So it is a best-selling book. You can get it on Amazon. It's called Nightlight, Soul Calling, Body Listening, Heart Speaking, Dr. Cara Barker. Thank you so much for sharing your time.
Oh, you're welcome, and happy holidays.